Reminds me of goldfish. Have you ever wondered how different materials work on a dark background? Join me in my sketchbook as I try a variety on black gesso. And I share my creative journey on this channel. I've had black gesso for a while, but I haven't done anything with it. I also have so many different media and wanted to try them all on the black gesso. I've put black gesso on a few pages in my sketchbook. The texture feels quite gritty, so I think a lot of media will adhere to it. So I'm just going to try out a few different materials. The first thing I want to try is these tinted charcoal pencils. They're by Derwent. Most of these are quite dark colours, which is why I'm intrigued how they show up on here. So let's start with a fairly medium colour. These could do with sharpening actually. It's definitely showing up, not as well on camera I think. It really depends on which angle you're looking at it from. Let's try this turquoisey colour. And then I'll try this quite light one, which is sand. Also use a little bit of water with it. And that just makes it disappear really. I could draw into it and maybe they'll make the pigment stick to the page better. So they're all definitely fairly dark on here, but that's just because they're quite dark colours. This one I thought was lighter than this, but still fairly dark. I do like how the edge is rendered though, of where I added water, and once it dries it shows a coloured edge. Smudging them is very addictive. It's almost impossible for me to just put down a line and not smudge it. I really want to. And then I have this white one, which I'm assuming will show up very well. Yeah. So that's good for little highlights. I really like the ochre colour. Or was it sand? I think I've used this one before. Like a mauvey colour. Glowing embers. Also fairly dark. Haven't actually used these a ton before. But I do like that they're all very muted colours. But I think they work just better on light paper. I haven't tried them on a kind of tan colour. That would be interesting. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't think these work as well on the dark background. Then I want to try some of my soft pastels. These are just Jackson's own brand. I really like those. And I've just bought individual colours that I liked. Again, I might start with a darker colour to see how that works. This is probably the darkest one I've got, which is dark umber. It looks really beautiful in real life, but I don't think you can see that. But they do stick to the gesso beautifully. Let's try maybe a really bright colour. Oh yeah, you can definitely see that. Now this, for example, looks much lighter than I thought it would. Let's try some water with that. I'm using too much water really. They do work well in the wet area. Let's try a bit more with some water. I think that probably works better on lighter paper with the water. Or at least I've done it on the light paper and it worked much better than this. Next, I want to try my gouache. Because they're a wet medium, I'm not sure how well they show up, but we'll see in a minute. Does show up really well actually. I have mixed quite a lot of white in this. Still haven't quite gotten the hang of how much water to use to make the right consistency for the gouache. Let's do a bit more transparent. I wonder how it would work with watercolour actually. It reminds me of goldfish, I don't know why. So the gouache obviously works very well when you use it quite opaquely, but even a little bit of washed down very light colour makes some beautiful effects, very subtle. If you like this video, consider subscribing. Now that I've tried the gouache, I want to see if watercolour also works. I'm thinking it's probably too transparent, but we'll see. I've got a few colours here. Schmincke Green Earth, which I know is quite a transparent colour. I have Daniel Smith Buff Titanium. And Schmincke Galaxy Brown. And then a nice blue, which is Glacier Green. Glacier Green.
Glacier.
By Schmincke. Start with the blue. Actually, start with the green because that's very transparent. These two are kind of semi-transparent and this is pretty opaque, almost like a gouache. Just gonna use it straight out of the tube. It looks very pretty wet, but once it's dry you might not be able to see it that well. It'll probably be very subtle. Even that is not as opaque as the gouache, obviously. Let's try a little bit of wet and wet if that works. Just looks very milky. Let's mix some of the blue in with that. This works quite well actually. Yeah, the green earth almost is disappearing. Then I'll try some of the pink or brown. Oh yeah, it's quite dark actually. Darker than I remember it. But it's more opaque than I thought. I haven't used these in a long time. I do want to get back into doing more watercolour actually. I think I'm giving up on this one. It's not going to be a beautiful painting, but I'm surprised how much more it shows up actually. I don't know, that's probably as much showing up as I thought it would, which is not very much, apart from the more opaque buff titanium. Now, of course, I also want to try acrylic paint. These are some pre-mixed colours. Most of them, I'm pretty sure, have dried up, but I just added a little bit of water to them, so hopefully I can still use them. If not, I'll get some others. But I have a nice range of light colours here. See if I can make that work again. It's quite thick, let's see. So even this, because it's quite a bright colour, shows up pretty well. But again, as soon as it dries, it might darken down a bit. This one's much newer, so that's why this one's not dried up yet. Even if I add a big surface area of paint, you can still see the black through a little bit, which I like. It's a really interesting texture. So the acrylic obviously works really well because most of the colours are very opaque. At least the ones I've used. And I've used quite light colours, and even this brown shows up really nicely, especially when you make it a little bit lighter. And then it's really nice and subtle down here, straight on the black, straight on top of the black. Unfortunately, I lost the main overhead footage for this part, but I wanted to show you anyway. I'm using Neocolor II crayons here, so I'll just show you a sped up version of this side angle. I find it really interesting to see how the different media behave on the black gesso. I love the acrylics and the soft pastels the most. I was also thinking I could mix some different colours into the black gesso to start off with a more tinted black. So I definitely want to play with that idea even more. I also got a few other materials